Good evening and welcome to November 18th, 2020, City of Burbank Police Commission meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and roll call, please.
Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Cohen?
Here.
Commissioner Ellman?
Here.
Chair Kobaisi?
Here.
Commissioner Vest?
Okay, for those of us in the chamber, we're going to do the flag salute now. Would you please stand and join me in the flag salute? Place your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the public comment period will be upcoming in a few minutes. To speak during that period, please call 818-238-3335. City staff will answer the phones and announce speakers in real time to the chair when the public comment period begins. Okay, so we'll start now with commission announcements and reporting out by commission subcommittees. Are there any commissioners with any announcements? Commissioner Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Monday evening, I attended the Pavelka Memorial, and I know that this is something in our force's history that weighs heavily, and it also touched our community. It was a pleasure and an honor to be able to attend that memorial. And I also like to take a moment and congratulate our people. There was a news release about a recent grant that was provided for traffic safety. And I wanted to thank our people, our staff, and our force for acquiring that grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chapman. Any other commissioners? Any reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to the oral communications period. There's 3 minutes per caller. Do we have any calls? Yes. We have a caller.
Our next caller is Gene. Gene, you're on live with the Police Commission.
Okay. Hi. My name is Gene, and, I've been very concerned about police unions because I think they wield a lot of power, and they always have, and people have always been intimidated by them. And we had an independent agency come and do an evaluation, and, the police commission or the police union was able to overturn one of the recommendations about writing up a report. But it seems like the tide is turning. I'm very happy because we want elected officials and commissions to be making the decisions, not a union. And what happened in a recent election here in Los Angeles is that we had a person who was running for Board of Supervisors, Herb Wesson, and he took $500,000 from the sheriff's union. How about that? $500,000. They don't give out $500,000 for no reason. They want something else, they wouldn't give it. But he was running against Holly Mitchell, and she takes money from the police union, but not as much and not like that. Guess what? She won. She won the race. So I think they don't have the magic. They don't have the power that they once did. And I think that's a good thing, and I think we have to keep that in mind. We as a commission, we as people and voters in Burbank, we as the people who represent the city in the city council, we need to keep that in mind, that we make the decisions, not the unions. We give the police an awesome responsibility. I want them to come when I call 911, and they have the ability to use deadly force if needed. We have to also monitor that to see if it's proper or not. And that's our legitimate interest. We need them, but we need them to be accountable. And anyhow, this is what I'd say, and I think this is what you're charged with. This is what the city council is charged with. And I'm here, and I'm going to keep on nailing on that, because it's something that we have to keep an eye on. Okay. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you. Any other callers? Next caller, please.
Our next caller is Robert. Robert, you're on live with the Police Commission.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the Police Commission, staff, and viewers at home. My name is Robert Hamill, and I am a Burbank resident, BUSD alumni, and BHS teacher. First, I wanted to thank you all for your work at addressing the common themes brought forth by myself and other community members over the past few months, sparked by the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Andres Guardado, Dijon Kizzee, and many others. I appreciate the presentations that have been made, as well as the questions and discussions that have followed. I wanted to comment in regards to Agenda Item G2 and BPD Policy 402. As a statistics teacher, I am a firm believer in data transparency. I'd like to suggest that one of the recommendations this commission brings forth to the council is to fast-track the police department's compliance with the Racial and Identity Profiling Act, RIPA. The data required to be collected for RIPA can provide one more source to measure biased policing. On a related note, I would also like to bring the Commission's attention to a recommendation from joincampaignzero.org on police oversight, which reads, quote, remove barriers to reporting police misconduct. For all stops by a police officer, require officers to give civilians their name, badge number, reason for the stop, and a card with instructions for filing a complaint to the civilian oversight structure, end quote. I understand the inherent nature of law enforcement creates some members of the public to blame the officer's conduct instead of taking a look at their own actions. However, in the name of complete transparency, I think it makes sense to have the officer share their information and make the complaint procedure readily available at the time of the stop instead of making the member of the public seek out the information on their own. Lastly, I wanted to comment on Agenda Item G3. For the sake of transparency, I've known the BHS SRO officer Rodriguez almost all my life as a family friend, as well as my youth pastor many years ago, and know that he is a wonderful person. With that said, I wanted to voice my support of BUSD's SROs, the way they are currently being utilized, which is to build relationships with students and provide someone that students feel safe coming to. My experience with SROs as an alumni of Burbank schools, as well as a current teacher at BHS, have always been positive, and I think they do a great job of community building. One caveat to my comment, I am a white male, so my lived experiences are unique to my identities. One of the complaints about SROs in general is they are just another cog in the school-to-prison pipeline for Black, Latino, and other people of color. I do not believe that is the case in Burbank, but I do not get to see the community feedback and do not know others' lived experiences. In some communities, the presence of a police officer does not add to the learning environment, but takes away from it as students feel intimidated and afraid of officers. Thank you again for all your work, and I look forward to continuing to follow the meetings and hearing your recommendations to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other callers? Okay, next caller, please.
Our next caller is Layla. Layla, you're on live with the Police Commission.
Thank you. Good evening, and I apologize this may be long. I'll try to keep it short. In relation to SROs in our schools, as I and many others have shared, we do not feel we need officers in our schools on a regular basis. They should be involved, only relating to any violent incidents or suspected child abuse situations. Our youth would be better served being counseled by trained counselors or social workers. In addition, we need a policy between Burbank Unified and BPD that parents and guardians will be immediately notified if a student is taken into custody, cited, or arrested, as that has not always been the case. In relation to bias policing and data transparency, I'd like to say thank you to Deputy Chief Albanese for sharing more recent data with me on status offense arrests that includes truancy and curfew arrests. So overall, I'm happy to see that the citation arrest rates for these offenses have gone down in recent years, since 2015 until now. Unfortunately, during that same time, racial inequities have grown. So, for example, between 2010 and 2014, black youth were 2.6 times likelier to be cited or arrested for these offenses than white youth in Burbank. Between 2015 and now, that number is now 6.6 times more likely. Again, between 2010 and 2014, for Latina youth, they were actually less likely to be cited or arrested than white youth. Unfortunately, now they are nearly 1.5 times likelier to be cited or arrested for these same offenses. So the overall trend is good. Those arrests and citations have gone down, and I hope that continues to the point that these offenses are actually decriminalized. But unfortunately, we do see that, racial disparities are persisting. And again, that's one reason why these things should be decriminalized. But it is something that, data transparency, one of the reasons why it is so important to see and look at and make available, not just internally, but to the public as well. In relation to police commission recommendations for city council, that's on the agenda tonight, I feel we should expand the commission to 7 seats, and that we need better guidelines around the makeup of the commission. We need a body that is representative of the community that it serves. We need to add folks who provide services to members of our community, like social workers, reentry service providers, housing assistance providers, and so on. We should not have current law enforcement officers on the commission. I feel this is a conflict of interest in a civilian board. And in terms of general recommendations around the police department, again, I feel we should decriminalize these status offenses that are bringing our youth into the criminal justice system at an early age unnecessarily. And, this is regardless of whether parents or Burbank Unified request that, these citations or arrests. These issues should be handled at school and outside of law enforcement and the criminal justice system. These
Thank you.
punitive policies
Your time is up. Thank you.
Causes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other callers? Okay. Seeing no callers, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Commission response to public comments. Are there any commissioners that would like to respond to any of the public comments? Commissioner Cohen?
I just wonder if some of the callers are aware of how little power this police commission has. We're not set up like a commission at LAPD and other places of that nature, the sheriff's department. We don't have the power to do what some of these folks would like us to do. If they want us to have more power, they should let the city council know.
Any other commissioners for responses? Okay, I'll take a couple of seconds here to respond. To the first caller, Gene, on the police unions. This body doesn't get any influence from police unions financially or anything like that. We're appointed community members. So I don't know if this is the proper venue to air that. So I would look into maybe, when you go to vote or when the community goes to vote, find out who's funding who and, make your choices there. I don't think we can come up with any policies regarding that. To the second caller, Mr. Hamill, thank you for your call. I think the department's working on something to try to get the data out as fast as they can. With regards to the oversight and the cards, and that sounds like a great idea. I'll look into that myself before I make any committal to it. For Layla, police arrests and notifications, I would defer that to the chief, and I think we probably would have a policy in place if a student was arrested on notifying their parents. I'm just assuming that that's there, but I'll double check. And for decriminalization of things, again, this body doesn't do that. That would be something you'd take up with your legislature. That doesn't happen here. Doesn't even happen at the city council for decriminalizing things. With that, then I will move on. Any other comments? Chief?
Just a couple of things to expand upon your explanation to our number 2 caller, Robert. I will say that all police officers in the field have badges, they have name tags. That's required by law. And in respect to complaints, we've made it as easy as possible to go online to make a complaint, to come into the station and pick up a complaint without asking for it. So I think those are good explanations for what we're doing out there. And then the third caller, Blayla, in terms of notifying parents, yes, that does happen, and it does happen in a contemporaneous manner.
Thank you, Chief. Let's move on unless there's any other comments. Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from October 21st.
Second.
Okay, so I saw a second. I didn't see the motion, the first motion and a second. So the second is Commissioner Vest, correct?
Yes.
And the motion was from Commissioner Elman? Because I can't hear you, Commissioner. So Elman and Vest. Okay, then none opposed. We'll just by consensus approve it. Thank you. Okay, next item. Presentation and discussion of the functions of the Burbank Human Relations Council and the BPD's role in facilitating service to the victims by Marcia Ramos.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Terrific. Good evening, members of the Burbank Police Commission, Chief LaChaz, and members of the viewing public. Burbank Human Relations Council, which I will refer to as BHRC, appreciates the invitation to make a presentation. In fact, we presented a little bit different presentation last week to the City Council at their invitation. I'm Marcia Ramos, a longstanding member of BHRC and a past president. I was also former chair of the Los Angeles County Human Relations Consortium, a former recipient of the United States Department of Justice Police Community Relations Award, a Burbank Police Community Academy graduate, class number 3, and a former member of the Burbank Police Commission. BHRC is a nonprofit public benefit organization. We're an all-volunteer organization with members that range in age from 25 to 95, representing the diversity in our community. We receive no government funding, and this enables our independence. This year is like no other, and I mean that in so many ways, but the good news is we've seen an increase in awareness of our organization, and we look forward to engaging members and friends and working together to build a beloved community. I don't know why I won't go to the next slide. Here we go. I will begin the presentation by reviewing some significant BHRC historical milestones, important partnerships, and overview of BHRC's working relationship with Burbank Police Department and BHRC's areas of focus relevant to police community relations. 62 years ago, BHRC was formed by Burbank residents, people of faith, and activists in response to a violent threat lodged against hardworking Black men and their employers. The first meeting was held on May 13th, 1958 in a home on Luch Street and brought together members of the Brotherhood Committee of the Jewish Center of Burbank and other faith and civic leaders, The BHRC was formed with the guidance from the Los Angeles County Commission on Human Relations, and that affiliation continues to this day. I think it's important to note that BHRC and its members were active in the civil rights movement of the 1960s. In our historical records, we found a copy of a telegram sent to President Kennedy regarding the violence in Alabama, a flyer with Reverend Kenneth Moore of First United Methodist Church and president of BHRC hosting a panel on religion and civil rights. And there's a series of interesting newspaper articles regarding housing, employment, and the Civil Rights March from Selma to Montgomery, in which 2 members of BHRC participated. For 6 decades, the BHRC has remained steadfast in our commitment to fostering good human relations in our city by promoting equality and understanding through education and action. We have initiated discussion panels, programs, and community engagement projects and provided public policy input. Through the years, we have also hosted interfaith, hate crime, cultural awareness forums, panels, and dialogues. BHRC has provided opportunities for the community to hear and learn from subject matter experts and city leaders. BHRC calls community together in sorrow and remembrance. And BHRC joins with community members in building bridges of understanding through outreach and participation. BHRC has been working with the Burbank Police Department for nearly 3 decades with 3 police chiefs. In this slide, it shows BHRC newsletters that announce the request by Police Chief Dave Newsham to work together on culture awareness efforts. I think that's back in 1992. BHRC has helped with community surveys. This slide shows the effort BHRC assisted the police department with in the mid-1990s to provide outreach to the diversity in the city as part of the department's effort to achieve cultural awareness training goals. Note the ethnic issues worksheet. This gave community members the opportunity to share their experiences and perspectives. Obviously, this was before the ease of online surveys and email blasts. BHRC maintains affiliations with local and regional civil rights, social service, and human relations organizations. BHRC receives consulting services from the United States Department of Justice, Community Relations Services, who are known as America's Peacekeepers. This division of DOJ was established as part of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. We have been in consultation with CRS, the LA regional representative, recently on these presentations and on community dialogues planned for 2021. We have worked with CRS in the past. CRS has provided information to a local high school on the CRS Spirit program, and CRS has provided training opportunities for BHRC leadership. BHRC works and receives consulting services from the Los Angeles Commission on Human Relations. We have coordinated our efforts to respond to intergroup tensions among students and currently collaborating with the Los Angeles County versus hate efforts. BHRC is a longtime member of the Los Angeles County Network Against Hate Crime, which meets quarterly across various locations throughout the county. Thanks to the support of our Burbank Police and Fire Departments, Burbank has served as a host to these informative meetings on several occasions. Mike Chapman is BHRC's key representative to the network and on hate crime issues. The next Hate Crime Network meeting will be held online and will discuss the findings of the 2019 annual LA County Hate Crime Report, which was released a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, the last 2 consecutive years has seen an increase in hate crimes and hate incidents countywide, and I was pleased to see that it is included as an attachment on your agenda. For the first time in 2019, BHRC had a booth at the annual National Night Out event held at Chandler Bike Path. We presented educational information about hate crime and hate incidents and handed out free "Hate Has No Home Here" signs. And those signs are still free and available. BHRC has offered to assist or to reach out to victims of hate crimes or hate incidents for many years. Sometimes BHRC became aware of a hate crime or incident that was not reported to the police. It was in our discussion with police chiefs that it was agreed that the intelligence detective or assigned officers tracking hate crimes would contact BHRC to inform us of the alleged crime. Per Burbank Police Department policy number 338, the assigned officers now present the victim with a brochure on hate crimes per the penal code, but also the assigned officers should make reasonable efforts to assist the victims by providing available information on local assistance programs or organizations. This includes BHRC. BHRC has adopted a hate crime response protocol that was researched and prepared primarily by a BHRC member, Gwen Flynn. It is designed to provide guidance to any BHRC council member who might outreach to a hate crime victim to determine support needs. It is both a protocol and outreach tool. The document delineates the role between law enforcement and BHRC, its community partner in the collection of hate crime related information. The questions are intended to provide comfort, foster a certain level of trust, and demonstrate support to hate crime victims without burdening them with duplicative queries. BHRC has a memorandum of understanding with Family Service Agency of Burbank. Lori Blythe, their executive director, is a BHRC board member. And FSA will provide victims assistance and case management. Fortunately, the number of reported hate crimes and incidents is low in Burbank, although even one is one too many. However, approximately 3 years ago, this protocol was tested with a victim. We believe it served the victim well, and Family Service Agency of Burbank also effectively provided invaluable services. In 2018, BHRC was recognized with the John Anson Ford Award by Supervisor Catherine Barger and the Board of Supervisors for a hate crime response model as an effective tool in supporting victims and fostering good human relations. And as you can see, members of the department also went up and received the award with us. It should be noted that the national statistics show that less than half of all hate crimes are reported to law enforcement. As I mentioned before, BHRC is sometimes made aware of a hate incident or crime and reports directly to the Los Angeles County Commission on Human Relations. The County Human Relations Commission tracks incidents and crimes throughout the county and issues the annual report. Very recently, Los Angeles County has launched a new way to report a hate crime or hate incident by simply calling 211. When 211 is called, the report is confidential and not affiliated with law enforcement. BHRC is participating in meetings to further the work of this effort to combat hate, and we hope to integrate our victim support and outreach protocol for those in Burbank that report to the 211 system. I hope you will help us spread the word about our effort to join with other communities across Los Angeles County in uniting against hate. BHRC is hosting an exhibition of poster art in recognition of the countywide United Against Hate Week. We invite students and adults to submit poster art themed Stand Together Against Hate that will be displayed in the Geo Gallery from November 30th through December 11th. Please visit our website for more information. And once the posters are up, look for featured posters on our website and Facebook page. And in 2021, BHRC plans to conduct community dialogues. It is a project long overdue, and we know how impactful they can be. We have initiated dialogues in the past, and our community members enthusiastically engaged. And if you look at the one picture, it shows a standing picture of then Chief Koffel speaking. At this time, we are planning and seeking partnerships, and after the planning process, we will conduct facilitator training in consultation with our human relations experts. In closing, I'd just like to end with a thoughtful quote. 50 years ago, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, and the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. For over 60 years, members of the Burbank Human Relations Council have strived to lead an effort in Burbank towards peace and harmony, and we ask members of our community to join us in this effort. As Dr. King so aptly showed us, when it comes to the pursuit of equality and justice for all, we cannot walk alone." So members of the commission and Chief LaChaz, thank you for the opportunity to be with you here this evening. And if you have any questions, I can certainly try to answer them. Otherwise, you can move on.
First, let me thank you for that very thorough presentation and valuable presentation, and also for you and the other members for all the hard work that you do. With that, are there any commissioners interested in any questions before we let Ms. Ramos go? Anybody with any questions or comments? Commissioner Chapman, anything? Okay. With that, thank you again. The chief would like to make a comment. Chief?
Okay.
I would just like to thank the Burbank Human Relations Council for all they've done to reach out to the community and get involved in a lot of incidents that most people would not get involved in. Okay. Of doing, and for that they should be lauded. We pledge to work with them in the future as we move forward. I have John Voorhees, our detective that handles hate crimes, here tonight, and a lot of the success of the police department handling these cases goes to him because of his relationship with the Burbank Human Relations Council, as well as his diligence in really seeking to resolve these incidents. And I would encourage people that if you are or think you're a victim of a hate crime, please report it. I do know that there probably is underreporting. That's a natural thing. But we will, if somebody comes to us and needs to talk confidentially, we do that. But the bottom line is that when we have a hate crime, it is a big issue. We need to get to the bottom of it. We need to stop it and let the no stone go unturned. So that's my pledge to the community, that if you think you were a victim, then get in contact with the department. Detective John Voorhees is our point person. He will end up getting that for investigative purposes. And again, we will handle it with confidentiality in mind. So again, thank you very much for all you've done to the Burbank Human Relations Council.
Thank you again, and good night.
I'm going to ask one more question, sorry.
Sure.
Since this is a topic that's on our agenda anyway, could you, in working with the police department and being an outside source from, not from within the police department, can you give us any type of insight on how the department responds to racial hate or hate crimes related to race? What's been your experience with their response to that for the benefit of the community members?
I think they actually have a policy. Their policy number 338 asks them to do a particular response. But in terms of communicating with BHRC, we receive an email within 24 hours letting us know that there is an alleged crime, hate crime. And that has been going on for a number of years. Now, whether the victim wants follow-up or not, that's always a different story, but we hear right away about alleged hate crime.
So in a working relationship, are they difficult to work with? Do you have difficulty getting access to this information? And the reason I'm asking is because we get all these calls where people assume that the department doesn't really respond to these types of situations. very well.
Well, I think it's important for the community to understand how a hate crime is designated as opposed to a hate incident. We certainly hear of incidents that do not meet the criteria of an actual hate crime. Does the police department take it serious? Yes, they do, but they can't file unless it meets certain criteria. But the fact that we are informed and we have this relationship where we can say, why didn't you file on that? And they give us the reasons. And then, or we say, have you heard about this? And they say, no, I haven't heard about that. I would say it's a very good working relationship.
Thank you.
Now, one thing that I heard Chief LaChaz speak to, and it was a system that we used in the past with past chiefs, was if someone was uncomfortable reporting a particular incident, a hate incident or a hate crime, and didn't want to file the report, but wanted to meet with somebody, we offered to go with them to sit with them so that the power dynamic would be more equal. And I would just say publicly that we still offer that because I heard the chief say that they would be willing to meet with people, so with the victim. So just know that they wouldn't have to go alone, and we offer our services to do that. We've done it in the past, nothing recently, but it was something we had. I hope that was helpful, probably long.
No, very helpful. Thank you very much, and good night. Thank you.
So if I could just add a couple things. One is that the hate crimes are described in Penal Code sections 422. There's some subsections there. So what we have to do is make sure that the report adheres to the law. But in respect to reporting a crime and it being prosecuted, the deputy district attorneys that generally handle these cases are very well trained and do a good job at communicating with the victims. And there also is a victim assistance coordinator at the DA's office to help that individual through the process. So I think it's gotten, over the past several years, much more user-friendly, if you will, and we do understand that sometimes there's a certain amount of embarrassment and not the desire to move forward. But again, there are people to help you through that process, and I think that's improved with time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is legal opinion regarding release of annual bias-based profiling and review of and audits reports under the California Public Records Act. For that is our Senior Assistant City Attorney, Gina O.
Good evening. The description on the agenda is probably it probably took you longer to read it than it will for me to present it, because I did review the reports and I did not find any reason that those had to remain confidential. It's my understanding that the police department will work to make those reports public. As you were told at our last meeting, the contents of those reports are already made public in various different ways, but the actual reports themselves in the format that they're presented to the chief and that I reviewed is also something that I understand will be made public. There's nothing, there's no specific information in there that would render it confidential under the Penal Code for police officer privacy.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioners' comments or questions on that? Seeing none. Next item. Discussion and determination of specific recommendations to the City Council by the Police Commission regarding the role of school resource program. Commissioner Cohen.
Yeah, I know there's mixed feelings about that, but I think that having a SRO at the school, certainly at the middle school and the high school, is very valuable. It teaches the children, students, that police officers aren't the bad guy, and it might gain some respect for the officers later in the streets. And I think to destroy that program would be a disaster. What we need to recommend to the City Council is more funding. So at least in the middle schools and the high schools, you could have a permanent officer every day at the school. and you can have rovers to take care of the grammar schools. I think it's really important, and I don't think we should do away with it. But I wanted to bring up something else, as long as we're talking about what we ought to recommend to the city council. I'd like this board to recommend to the city council that they set aside a day, come the first of the year sometime, as national recognition for law enforcement. These people are out there every day protecting us, putting their lives on the line. And we hear all these, we got to change this, we got to change that, we got to defund them. Well, who are you going to call? A social worker if you get in trouble? I think we ought to recognize them, and we should have a day every year to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. Any other comments on the school resource officer program, recommendations from any of the other commissioners? Commissioner Vest.
I know as a product of Burbank Unified School District, and my parents as well were teachers in Burbank Unified School District, it's important that we have officers there, not only for kids to get to be able to know them and not be afraid of them, to understand that they are just human beings as well, but as a safety factor. When you hear today, unfortunately, how many school shootings tragically have come about in this nation, it's all well and fine with therapists and psychologists to deal with certain problems, but those particular people are not going to be able to do anything if there's an active shooter in a school. It's going to be that lone SRO that's at that school that's going to take it upon themselves to attempt to address the threat and put a help call out for other officers to come in and help with that situation. And that is not something that safety-wise that we want to gamble with our kids. So my recommendation would be to keep them in our schools.
Thank you. Any other commissioners care to comment? Commissioner Chapman?
Do we need to take a vote to include that in the advice to the council?
We will at the end of the discussion period, certainly. Okay. Any other comments? Let me, Commissioner Cohen?
Recognition Day for the police. That's a motion I'm making, that we include that. So maybe that needs to be voted on and whatever.
I think for that one, Commissioner Cohen, we're going to probably have to wait, since it's not agendized, that and put that at the end of the meeting when we put new agenda items and vote for it. Is that accurate? Anyone here can share, is that what we do? So we're going to stick to this topic, and then we'll address that one after this topic's over. Is that okay?
Sure.
Mr. Chair, you do have an agenda item number 5 that discusses any other specific recommendations that you as a board want to make to the council. So technically, Mr. Cohen's suggestion could fall under number 5.
Okay.
We're not quite there yet on the agenda unless you want to kind of take things out of order.
Well, just to keep it neat, do you mind, Commissioner Cohen, if we move it to item 5 and then finish up with the school resource officer recommendation?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. Any other comments on the school resource officer program? Okay, then let me address a couple of my comments on that. You know, I read all of the information that we got back from members of the school system. You know, that would be faculty, staff, administrators, students, and parents. I have to tell you, when we sent out I sent out a letter to them. I asked for Burbank-specific issues on why, how the interactions with the SROs, any negative information was welcomed, positive information was welcomed. We received hundreds of responses. I went through all of them, assuming the rest of the commission did. I couldn't find one where someone said they had a negative experience with any of our school resource officers. Now, there were a handful of people that just wanted to defund the program. They seemed to be, boilerplate written letters that they just changed the numbers in them of how many kids they had, and school to prison pipeline in there, but nothing specific as to why and to remove that program from Burbank. Many administrators, wanted more. Teachers wanted more SROs. So after reading all that, and from my experience also, being a product of the Burbank schools and seeing them there, I got to tell you, I didn't have any interaction with them, but I saw them there, and it made me feel better that there were some police officers on campus. But I can't find any reason to defund or to remove them. They don't act as counselors. A lot of people were saying, well, we need counselors and social workers. That's not what this program's for. If you want social workers in the schools, then I think we need to address that with the BUSD, and maybe they fund additional social workers on the campus. But with this specific program that, and the chief will correct me if I'm wrong, it's 100% funded by the city. That's all we're going to take up here, and I can't see us making any other recommendation. At least my position is keep them and recommend that the program be expanded if possible. And with other issues as far as communication, I think that the police department has demonstrated that they're willing to listen to anybody. So if there are any concerns from parents or groups regarding how incidents are handled on the campus or how students are treated, we have the public relations, the Human Relations Council. They can reach out to. There's many ways that we can work together to try to have more open policies, but I think we're pretty covered on here. So unless there's any other comments, I think we might be ready for a vote on this issue. Commissioner Ellman.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with all of you. I think at the recommendation that the council should also look at expanding the program. Like Commissioner Best brought up with the active shooters, just because the active shooters aren't on front page anymore at the moment, they're out there, and I think as a city, we should be aware of it and have a plan in place. Thank you.
Thank you. On one more thing I wanted to address on that too is with some of the emails I received statistics on how terrible that the program is. And I want to just, let everybody know that none of those statistics were related to Burbank. These were national statistics that may have been taken from big cities and other places. And so I think in keeping with what we're doing here with all of these recommendations, not just for the SRO program, but for all the other ones, I think we have to keep everything Burbank focused. So just because something's happening across the country, in another place, does not necessarily mean that that's happening here. Doesn't mean we don't look into things, but I think when we come to vote on this, we have to keep in mind what works for Burbank. So if there's no other comments, I guess we can put to a vote that we have a comment from City Attorney.
It's actually more of a question, and that is, we haven't had discussion on how the report will be made to council. So I know that they do want a written report. That is my understanding. But there hasn't been discussion about who would actually write the report. Historically, in the past, there have been two different ways. One is that certain members of the commission itself, commissioners, would write the report, then present the report to the other commissioners. They would vote on it, make sure that it exactly expresses what the body of the commission wants, and then it goes to council. Another way you can do it is to make your votes tonight about what you're recommending, be very specific about your findings, the reasons why you're making these recommendations, because staff would write up the report that is then presented to the council. So you can understand if staff is writing it up, whatever you agree on tonight, again, it has to be really specific and detailed enough that staff has the information that they can actually put into the report.
Okay, may I ask then if we did, I guess we take that to a vote here to see what the rest of the commission wants, but if we ended up having staff collect all of our decisions and reduce them to writing, would we be able to have an opportunity to see those again before they're finalized?
I believe we are going to have a December meeting. So I would imagine, are we not going to have a December meeting? I see some heads potentially shaking.
I think we're going to put that up again.
Historically, we've never had one in December.
That is true. But on the other hand, Mr. Cohen, Commissioner Cohen, we also have not had a pressing goal to go back to City Council in January or maybe even February. But obviously that is up to the commission how you want to do it. It's my understanding the expectation is January, perhaps even early February to take it back to council. So if you want it to be dark in December, staff could bring it back January for your review. Or even if some members of the commission were to write it up, it should still come back for the collective review of the commission as a whole. So if you're dark in December, we're talking January at the earliest.
Okay, so let me just go off the side here first and kind of poll everybody before we make a decision on this one, on the school resource officer. So if I just put it simply, there's the two ways. You heard the two options. We can either try to do it together, which my personal opinion is could get difficult because there's a lot of us here at play, or we can make the decisions here and try to go through them today. I was hoping, because I have a list, to try to go through all of them today. Go dark December to give staff enough time to produce the document, bring that back in our January meeting, vote and finalize it there. Be ready for February presentation. Is that so? That would be my recommendation, unless there's any other commissioners that disagree. Commissioner Elman? I can't.
I'm not voting. I have a question.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If we do it, take it upon ourselves to do it, what are the Brown Act considerations?
As long as it's not a majority of the commission getting together to write it up, there is no Brown Act concern. It has to be, so in the past, what we've done is we've had a subcommittee of less than a quorum to get together. So we'd be talking, there's 5 of you now, so we're talking only 2 people at most could get together to write it. Or if somebody wanted to volunteer, 1 person could write it up. It really is just about who can, pull all the ideas together, the recommendations, the reasons for the recommendations. And I do believe the more specific reasons you have for explaining why you are deciding to make these recommendations, the more City Council will be able to understand the recommendations, right? That there is a basis for it. For example, the discussion we've had tonight already, the notes that I took, is that the recommendations, I believe what you will vote for is to recommend keeping the SRO program, perhaps even expanding it if there are funds to do so, because there have been no specific complaints about any Burbank SRO program or SRO officer, as well as the fact that if any problems should arise, there are certainly already established many different ways to communicate with each other to address issues that could arise. And a lot of the stuff that the chair mentioned as reasons for why he's putting forth his recommendation. So as you move forward, you may hear me interrupt as I try to clarify, make sure that, again, if you want staff to write it up, clarify what the recommendation is, why you're making the recommendation that you are. Did that answer your question, Mr. Elman?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Chapman, you had a question or comment?
Quick comment. I would prefer that the recommendations originate from the commission. And I'd also like to say that I would be very open for a December meeting if the agenda was limited to perhaps just this subject.
Okay, Commissioner Cohen.
Yeah, I go along with your thoughts on it, Mr. Chairman. One way or the other, I can't be there in December. Figuring we were going to have the month off, I got some plans going on. But certainly if you want to carry on without me, so be it.
Okay, so there's two different scenarios here, and one of them is even varies a little bit with your recommendation, Commissioner Chapman. If we did it on our own, we'd have to have a subcommittee do that of 2 people. I'm assuming you're volunteering to be one of those people, and we'd have to come up with what Ms. O just said, what she was able to gather. So is that what just to clarify, is that your position, is that we have a subcommittee and we do it ourselves? It wouldn't matter if December was dark either, because you could still work on it during that time.
If staff were to do it, would there be inclusion, or would it be based only on what is said in the meeting this evening?
Would it be? Well, I think you'd only be able to do what's in the meeting. I think legally we can only put into the document what we discuss in the meeting. It wouldn't be, if we did it on our own, that we could put any other items in there. We'd have to do what we agreed to do, what we vote on.
Correct. So, Mr. Chapman, you can think of, when I say staff, it's not members of the commission. It is literally probably Sherry. Sorry, Sherry. It will probably be Sherry who is taking very good notes, as well as, I don't know if this meeting is recorded, but taking into consideration all of your statements. Staff, Sherry, whoever writes it up, they don't insert their own ideas, which is why at times throughout tonight's discussion, you may hear me interject, or you may hear Sherry interject to get clarification of things that you say, because it is going to be like a recording of what you say. If you don't make the findings won't be in the report. If you don't make certain recommendations, it won't make it into the report. It is literally what the commission's recommendations are. So you all have to make the recommendations. You need to discuss it. You need to decide upon it. If you can come to a consensus and then make the recommendation, I suggest, normally the best practice would be that you make findings to support your recommendations, because it's all well and good to say, let's keep the SRO program. But if you don't have any discussion as to why you're making that recommendation, it doesn't give council very much to go off of, right? At some point, you should be able to explain why you're making the recommendations that you are. You should be able to articulate it tonight so that we can take really good notes on it and write it up, bring it back at the next meeting, whenever that will be. You will have an opportunity to review it, redline changes if you think it didn't express what the actual recommendation or the findings that you make tonight are, and really make it your own. So staff does not interject their own ideas or their own findings. They're not going to go out and research things. It is literally what you come up with tonight.
Mr. Chair, I think maybe I'll change a little bit. As long as our commission, and I believe that this is what Ms. O was saying, that our commission would be reviewing the document before it's sent. I'm not sure exactly when we shut down the December meeting, and if the council is expecting this in January.
So I clarified with the assistant city manager, Ms. Wilkie, and she said she went back and actually she rewatched the joint meeting that you had with city council. And it's her opinion that if we brought it back January or February, that would be sufficient, and that council, that would be within council's expectations.
So then we would have some time to do that. And that seems like a reasonable way to go. Having the staff create the document, We are reviewing it at the next meeting, which I believe is in January, and then go on from there.
Sherry has a comment.
So I've reached out to the city council, and right now we tentatively have on hold January 26th and February 9th for your joint police commission city council meeting. So you could meet in January to finalize your report and then go to council on February 9th to present your report. So just FYI.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm getting a consensus that we're going to go with staff writing it. We make the recommendations. We'll review it then in January in hopes of having it done, the joint meeting in February. Is that what everybody else's understanding is? So do we need to vote on that, or can we just go on? Everyone seems to agree. So can we just then, do you want to do a roll call on it? Okay, so let's do a roll call on putting it in for, let's try to have staff write our recommendations. We reviewed them in January and present them in February to the joint meeting. Anybody disagree with that? Commissioner Cohen, sorry.
I totally agree with it, but maybe when staff gets it typed up, they could email it to us ahead of time. As individuals, we could look it over and see if there's anything glaring, and we could bring it back in January.
As long as you don't discuss it amongst yourselves,
Right.
that should be doable.
Which we would normally get it anyway. Would we be getting it, Sherry? We would be getting it in our packet before the meeting anyway. Okay, so I think we're all in agreement. I polled everybody's in agreement, Sherry. Thank you. Okay, so then let's, unless there's any continuing discussion on these school resource officers, are we ready to take a vote on that last recommendation? Commissioner Chapman?
Just to add, the letters that had been collected about SRO, could those be attached as an addendum to the report that we send to the council, so that they have that as well? It's public
We
record.
can check on that and see. I mean, I personally don't, there's over 200. I mean, I printed them all out, so I mean, I could give them to somebody if they need them, but I think they've left that to us to make that recommendation, and so we've reached out and done that. Certainly, if any of the council members want to read them, I can give them to them. And you have a copy of them. You can certainly share them too.
Yes, you do.
Correct? So, I mean, but I think that, I don't want to throw it back on them because I think they gave us this job to do. So I want to be able to say we did it and here's our recommendations. If they want to dig in any more, they're free to do that. So with that, Commissioner Cohen?
Have we articulated the reasons, as Gina said, that we should give them the reasons we're doing that?
I think she's collected those reasons during our discussion. Ms. O, do you have enough?
So I think I have enough. So probably I'm trying to think what the best way procedurally it would be to do this. So why don't you go ahead and then vote on your recommendation regarding the SRO program, after which I will articulate the reasons that I believe came up in your discussion, and then you can vote again that those are in fact, add to or take away, that those are in fact the reasons behind your decision. Or should we do it the other way around? Mr. Chair, it really...
Why don't I, Commissioner Vest?
Should we just quickly summarize and clarify the reason in a short summary as to why, and that way you can jot it down without, extra...
Yes, I think that's fine. And then, Mr. Chair, what you can do is say, based upon all of those, reasons that were just articulated by Commissioner Vest. Right, then someone makes a vote or someone puts, a recommendation, then you have your second and then you can vote. That way it doesn't have to be all repeated.
Okay.
Does that work?
Commissioner Vest?
I can go first if that works.
Sure.
Okay. So my reasoning specifically is that our children's safety in our schools is number one. And whereas counselors and therapists are there for psychological things and career development and issues of that nature that are not equipped to handle dangerous situations that arise, unfortunately, in our schools. And I think that it's important to have an officer assigned to each school if a crisis should arise that they would be equipped to handle that literally no one else on that campus could probably handle.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Ellman.
I would also like to put down that a police officer is a role model, and it's very positive reinforcement for children growing up to have role models.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Cohen and then Commissioner Chapman. Commissioner Cohen? You're on mute, Commissioner.
There it is. Okay. Yeah, I would add that it's also a good teaching moment for the children in school to know that a police officer is not a bad guy. He can be trusted, and he's there to protect you, the children.
Commissioner Chapman.
I kind of go back to the response that we'd gotten from the public, both teachers and students, and parents especially. They're the people that are benefiting from this. And it seems like they are very much in favor of it. And I don't know if we can add a count to support that in our document or not, but 100 here, 100 there, whatever it was. But that seems to be the most important thing, is that the people who receive the service want it, and want it a lot.
Mr. Chapman, to clarify, what are you basing your statement on?
The emails that were received.
Are those the same emails or letters that Chair Kobaisi was referring to?
Yeah, all the commissioners received copies.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I will then, I'll also continue and add on to what Commissioner Chapman said. I think my basis for supporting the program is, number one, nobody was able to identify that there was a problem there, and that's what we asked for. Number two, the biggest stakeholders, the parents and the faculty and staff, have asked for that program to not be defunded or touched. Rather, they've asked for it to be increased. As the largest stakeholders, I think we really have to take that as the direction that we need to go into. And I would support increasing that program, and even go as far as saying is that the city council should try to find additional funding or work with the district to have the district also try to fund some of those positions as well, so that the program doesn't just have 2 full-time officers at the high schools. With roving to the, a lot of the comments were made that they should be in the elementary schools and in the middle schools. So that, based on that, I fully support the program to continue and increase.
And Chair Kobaisi, I believe you mentioned the commission received over 200 emails and letters?
Yes.
Or do we have an exact count?
I can get you one. I mean, they're still trickling in.
Okay.
So I don't have the final total. We still had a couple after the last number. In the last meeting, I think I read the numbers out, but I can.
Okay, we can find
get
it.
those. Yeah.
That's okay. We can find it.
The last count I had was over 175 were yeses, and about 30 people just didn't really answer it or were against it based on other non-Burbank issues. That's the number I got from the last meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Chapman, I think what might work well is not necessarily to include the actual letters, but I understand it was some sort of a survey that went out. So perhaps we can attach a copy of the survey that went out so that City Council can see what was asked of parents and staff.
Yeah, it was an email that was sent to all the seven, and we can provide you with that. And just to let, additionally too, for, so that the city council knows, that letter was translated into Spanish and Armenian so that everybody, could understand it.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's our summary, I guess. Ms. O, do you think that's enough there? Should we vote on it or wait for you to summarize it? Or do you need any more information?
No, I took good notes, and I'm assuming Sherry is taking even better notes wherever she is. And I think it's fine. I have enough findings. If you want to go ahead and take a vote, I think there's consensus, but you should, for the record, go ahead and take your vote.
So for the record, let's have a motion to keep the program and increase it as the comments and the recommendations that we've collected and stated reflect. So are there is it Commissioner Cohen?
Yeah, I move that we recommend to the city council to keep the SRO program and increase it if they can find the funding to do so.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Anybody? I see everybody in favor, nobody opposed. Motion carries. Okay. That item is done. Next item. Discussion and determination of specific recommendations to the City Council by the Police Commission regarding the role of mental health evaluation team. Any discussion on that? Commissioner Cohen.
I think it's a terrific program. I think we need to keep it. If that can be expanded, better yet. But we cannot send those counselors out without a police officer. If the uniform is too intimidating, send somebody in plain clothes. But things happen very quickly out there, and a lot of bad things can happen. And the liability could be tremendous if we send them intentionally by themselves into a dangerous situation and something, God forbid, happens.
Other commissioners' comments? Commissioner Chapman?
I'd like to say I agree with Mr. Cohen on this, Commissioner Cohen on this. That it's an excellent idea.
So, Ms. O, do you want us to, you're just going to summarize these comments based on, or do you want me to just ask them to give their actual reasoning? Why?
As part of your discussion, you should be talking about the reasons why. As part of your discussion, I can take notes as we go. And then if I have any questions about anything, I can ask for clarification based upon your vote. And Sherry, you should also ask for clarification if you need it for your official minutes.
So it's okay that my Commissioner Chapman and Commissioner Cohen are basically the same. Does Commissioner Chapman need to expand, or can we just go ahead?
I think probably the best way to do it is everybody, as part of your discussion, relay your thoughts. I will take notes, and then if things change, or like let's say, Commissioner Chapman says something, and then Commissioner Vest disagrees. And if there's a disagreement, then it won't make it into the official findings unless you actually make a vote.
Okay.
So I'm really taking notes as to things that seem to be consensus.
Okay, anyone else then? Commissioner Elman.
Well, one of the things that the city council does, it allows us to attend the Nicole conferences. And in those conferences, there are people from all over the country and even from all over the world. And from attending that type of conference, I really came to the conclusion of how lucky we are to have a MET team, because as Mr. Cohen was saying, things can go south very quickly. And luckily, because we do have MET teams, we've avoided, I believe, a lot of those issues. So a lot of work, I remember a few years ago, was put into creating those teams. And I've run into no situation where say it caused a problem. So I'm a big believer in the saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I was really saying, we have a winner with this team, and we should continue with it, because it's best for the safety of the community and it's best for the safety of the professionals in the city, meaning the police and the mental health and the social workers.
Okay. Commissioner Vest, and then Commissioner Chapman.
We had that presentation that was given to us by the officer that works that particular team. And I think the thing that stood out to me the most, coming from a different perspective than most of everyone on this commission, was the fact that he had alluded to the fact that there were no uses of force in an extended period of time. And unfortunately, sometimes force is something that is unfortunately, I should say, has to be used in situations where people are under the influence or mentally ill, depending upon the situation. And the fact that the team had not had to use any type of force in an extended period of time was very surprising to me. And to me, that's a testament to the fact that the program is working and that people are complying once they are contacted by Burbank PD, and they are taken into custody safely, and that a psychologist interviews them and determines what type of care that they need. And by those factors alone, it speaks volumes to me that it's working and that it should be kept as is.
Okay, Commissioner Chapman, and then Commissioner Cohen. Commissioner Chapman, you're on mute.
Just to go along with Commissioner Cohen, I'm assuming that the officers would have a minimal amount of training, which they do. They are getting training in our force now, as how to handle a situation, and also that they have higher level trained people that access to in case they needed it.
Commissioner
So, if I can clarify, Mr. Chapman, are you stating that police officers who are part of the Med team currently have additional training to be part of it, or are you making that as part of your recommendation that any police officers who are part of a Met team have additional training?
No, that any officer have a minimum level of training.
All officers?
Yes, which they do now, I believe.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, to clarify, I'm going to get to you, Commissioner Cohen, just so I make this point, and to remind everybody that I did speak with the Deputy Director of LA County Mental Health before our last meeting, and she had told me that all of our officers, we had 100% compliance with the training, and that Deputy Chief Albanese is on top of that all the time. She spoke very highly of him, and she said that all our officers, are very supportive of the program. When they do the training, they're interactive. So yes, they do receive the training, and also to remind you that LA County Mental Health is the partner in that program. This isn't just a BPD program; it's a joint program. So for those folks that are, asking for defunding and decoupling and all these things, this is a program that works well in Burbank, and I wouldn't see any need for defunding or decoupling. That's what's, this is a step up from what we had when we had no mental health, professionals responding to calls. So, Commissioner Cohen?
I just wanted to add to what I said earlier. As I recall, our program with a mental health representative and a police officer is a model for many other cities, if not states. I think the chief touched on that. And that's a big deal, and that speaks well of us, and we should keep it going.
Okay.
Say this about the program, that we were the first out of the box, and it was because our council voted to pay half the salary at that time of a psychologist. That was in 2012. We went to Supervisor Antonovich and pled for that to happen. On top of that, when the current district attorney, Jackie Lacey, came into office in 2012, she wanted to establish a countywide mental health training program. And it was because of Chief Albanese and other members of the Burbank Police Department. They actually became a part of the cadre to train all of the other officers in LA County. So we were involved since the inception of the program in 2012. And yes, we do get visitors all the time from around the country to look at our model.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add on also that my reasonings for supporting this program continuing as is, in addition to what I've already said, is that the Deputy Director of LA County Mental Health also said that they welcome having a police officer at these type of interactions, and that they've never had any problem that they couldn't work out between them and the police officers assigned to them. So I think we have to support things like that that are working very well. And I don't know how much more I can enthusiastically recommend that the City Council support this program and expand it. Any other comments? I think, has everyone had an opportunity to weigh in on this? I think everybody has. Okay, so Ms. O, do we now just take another vote? Anybody want to put a motion forward to approve the continuing of this, continue supporting this program as is? Commissioner Cohen?
I move that we recommend to the City Council that they continue the mental health program as is, at least, if they cannot further implement it by making it grow or expanding it.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have Commissioner Chapman second. All in favor? By consensus, I see everybody has approved. Nobody's disagreed. Okay, so the motion carries. On to item number 4. Actually, that was on number 4. So number 5, where we're going to collect the other ones, discussion and determination of any other specific recommendations regarding the police department to be presented to the City Council at the February meeting, I guess. Is that correct, Sherry? February meeting or January meeting? So in our January meeting, 2021. We're just skipping December, I think. Commissioner Cohen.
Yeah, I would like to recommend that this commission recommend to the City Council that they assign 1 year every day as Law Enforcement Recognition Day. I think the people of this department have earned it. They put up with a lot of silliness. They do their very best to do a good job. We're blessed to have such a good department. And I think it's time that they're recognized for all the hard work they do, for laying their life on the line every day to protect us, the citizens of Burbank.
We don't already have a motion? That's
Well, I will say for purposes of clarification, we do have the Burbank Police Foundation recognition lunches annually. We missed it this year because of COVID. Also on May 15th of each year, it's Law Enforcement Memorial Day. So what we always do is have a celebration with the fire departments, Police and Fire Service Days. So perhaps we can incorporate it at one of those two activities.
Commissioner Cohen, did you know, is that National Day, is that a specific day? Is there a specific day for it?
I
No,
don't know
that's
that,
the
but
memorial,
I
right?
think they've
Are you
earned
talking about
a
the same
day
thing?
of their own, this department.
Okay, so just to clarify, you're just talking in general, National Support Law Enforcement Day, not the Peace Officer Memorial Day. That's already a
Law
national.
Enforcement Recognition Day in the city of Burbank.
Okay, so he's asking for an additional one. Okay, I would second that. Any other Okay, seeing none. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, let's go with all in favor first. Opposed? I see none. The second, I think I did. Okay, so the motion carries. Okay, so what I'm going to do for housekeeping here is I'm going to go down this list that we already have, that we said we were going to go through from back in, I think this is June. And we had picked some things to discuss, but there was other things that the city council had, kind of give us a nudge to look into. And if you see any of these that we haven't covered, could someone, just raise their hand so that we can see if we, Commissioner Chapman?
Yeah, I'd like to see something added to our advice to the council. There is a state mandate coming in about racial bias in their police contacts. And I'm wondering if we can find out what the department would like to propose as a plan over the next 2 years until that mandate is, until that law is mandated, in collecting that data and reporting the data as far as racial bias, race in any stop that's made. And that would include stops that warrant detention or a citation and not having a citation.
Okay, Commissioner Vest?
There's a second part of it, but I want to hear from Amy,
okay.
Councilman Vest, if we could.
Commissioner Vest?
Commissioner Vest.
Quick question. So like, it's almost kind of like a consent decree requirement, but the department's not required to document things of that nature. So I'm not quite sure how he would collect that data.
I don't know the exact way either. Perhaps at the end of the notes section, if you put comma, 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 whatever the fields are that are going to be required in 2 years, so that we start collecting it and start getting some information on it. And the reason I'm saying that is because now there seems to be a lot of questions about how police interact with citizens. And this could be a very affirming response, but it could also give us a baseline of where we're at.
Commissioner Vest, can I let Ms. O? I was going to say, can I let Ms. O? She had a comment to address it. Maybe that'll answer.
So we are on number 5 on the items of business, where we're trying to discuss and determine any other specific recommendations that the commission wants to make to city council. And perhaps you can reframe your statement in a way that fits into our agenda. So as we sit here right now, I am a little confused about what the specific recommendation would be. Is it that you're recommending to city council that they mandate the police department to do something in the interim regarding these statistics that you're referring to?
No. As for the police to present a plan to the council for their review as to the collection of data for the next 2 years, a temporary stopgap until the law is mandated in 2023.
So the specific recommendation to city council would be for them to mandate the police department to come forth with a plan to them.
Correct. There's also a second part to that, is that in our requirements doc to the auditing, OIR, that we include specific language about data collection and the contact that is being made with different individuals?
I believe they already do get that material. Also, the commission should be aware the contract with OIR ends this year. The city is going to go out for a request for proposals for new or potentially different independent monitors who might want to throw their hat into the ring to vie for that contract. So we are actually in the process of putting together that request for proposal right now. OIR can also, submit a proposal. There's nothing that keeps them from submitting a proposal as well, but we are in that process. So that is Commissioner Chapman's comment. You need to discuss now and determine whether or not any of these things are actually going to be voted on as a commission to put forth to the council.
Okay, so Commissioner Chapman, as I was saying, there was a list of Exhibit A, I think, from the July 24th meeting. We had come up with a list of items, possible items that we were going to look into. And one of those that I'm looking at now, well, I just had it checked off here, was Racial and Identity Profiling Act. Is that what you're talking about? Data-wise and timeline?
Yes.
Okay, so that's already on here as an item that we wanted, that we could possibly discuss. It's just for the benefit of the rest of the commission, if you don't have this in front of you.
It wasn't on our list so far this evening.
No, it wasn't, but it was something we thought we might talk about when we originally did it, and it didn't come down to the actual narrowing of the list. So if you want to vote on something like that, I guess we can, and that'll just check off one additional thing off the list here.
Let me add something to that, and that is this,
Sure.
that the law specifies that we start collecting January 1st of 2022, and then that data gets reported starting in 2023. So the data from 2022 will be reported out and go public in 2023 by the Attorney General. We can assess the feasibility of an earlier start, but we may not be able to. We have a CAD system that may not support that. We're working as recently as today. We got direction from the Department of Justice to contact them regarding the types of interfaces that we're going to have with them. So I would be concerned about saying we're going to do something that we can't produce. I think we can study the feasibility of, in some way, gathering that information ahead of the 2022 start date. So that would be starting sometime in 2021, but we just can't make any promises to do that.
I'm Commissioner Cohen, just 1 second. Commissioner Chapman, I don't know if you're asking, I wasn't clear. I think we're all on the same page here that we want to head in that direction. I think the timeline issue is what we're talking about, is whether or not we can do that before then. And the chief's saying that there's a CAD issue, that needs to be worked out. So maybe we could certainly make a recommendation to stay ahead of the game. And then we just have to leave it up to the city council to either find the funding to adjust that CAD system, correct? Because you're going to need to pay for that, right? So is that your recommendation, that we try to set the timetable earlier and recommend to the city council to fund that?
Yeah.
Okay, so Commissioner Cohen, and then we'll get back to the wording of it. We lost Commissioner Cohen. There he is.
Do we know what the language of that legislation is going to be? I mean, if we're going to start collecting information, we should know the exact stuff we're supposed to collect. Or are we waiting for the legislation?
No, it currently exists. There are, and what the legislation provided for is that the larger departments in the state go online first. So some departments have already been reporting it. But in terms of our requirement, we're still assessing the viability of our Tiburon CAD RMS system to be able to transfer that data in the proper format to Sacramento. So it is a long process, and DOJ is working with the majority of the departments throughout the state to try to make this happen.
So, Commissioner Chapman, may I suggest then the motion be that we recommend the city council, on a timetable, I guess that we are on a timetable, to fund that so that the police department can be ready once.
As soon as possible.
Yeah, as soon as possible. So we're not waiting until the last minute. So maybe it's kind of it's a recommendation to fund and support the collection of this data. That's going to be automatic. If they approve it, they're going to have to approve some sort of funding to do it, I'm assuming, because it doesn't exist currently.
And then two is that it be installed as soon as possible.
I would, if we can do it, I wouldn't be against it. Any other comments? Can we you want to rephrase that short motion then? So we can vote on it.
We advise the council to fund the systems that are required to fulfill the requirements of the 2023 reporting that will be coming up, and that our department work as well to make it as operational as soon as possible.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Ms. O seems to have a question.
Ms. O, do you have a question, comment?
I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out how best to write it in a way that makes sense. So what I have, Mr. Chapman, is recommend City Council fund and support the necessary technology to collect data that will be legally required in 2023 as soon as possible, prior to 2023 if possible. Is that correct?
Yes.
And my reasoning for supporting that is that we stay ahead of the game and not wait until, if we are able to, we should. Any other commissioners want to weigh in on that? Commissioner Vest?
Well, my question is if they receive the funding and they're going to receive this program and they're going to follow through with it, are they going to sit on it? Like, is that something that they're normally going to do? Wouldn't they be implementing it as quick as possible? So isn't it kind of redundant to ask them to do it as fast as possible when most times, like when body-worn video rolls out and different other legislation that comes forward, they're going to implement it as fast as possible because it's just kind of a given.
I think that the state was very kind in giving a good amount of time for them to progress with setting up the program. I think that
program isn't set up overnight. That's why it takes time to implement it. And my assumption is the department's going to implement it as quick as feasible. It's not like they're going to do what they have to do to implement it and start it. Whereas I don't think it's necessary to have to tell them to do it immediately. I think they already are aware of that.
So to give some,
I'm just passing my opinion on to the council.
well, you will all vote on the motion anyway, but just to give some context, as Commissioner Vest states, it does take time, particularly when you're dealing with technology. Just to give you an example, our office is trying to find technology to upgrade our case management. It has taken a year to draft the request for proposals with all of the technological requirements that are necessary. When we rolled out body-worn cameras, it took quite a long time to do it because it's not something that is, the technology is quite complex in it. And not only do you need to figure out what you need to do, you have to find vendors who can then do it if our current vendor can't do it. All of those things do take time. And I will say, as Commissioner Vest stated, this is a legal mandate. We all know it's happening. We all know it has to happen. So, and because we know it takes time, the police department is not sitting on it. I imagine that they've already started looking into how we're going to do it and how we're going to fund it in a time right now when the city, our coffers are thin, given everything that we've gone through with COVID. So, personally, I do not think that it is a concern that we are going to be sitting on it, as it is a legal mandate. And I don't know that the city can do it any faster than 2023, which is what the legal requirement is. But this is your recommendation to council. So you've put it forth, you've discussed it, now you should vote. And I have at least one finding from Chair Korbaisi as to why you are recommending it if in fact it does get approved by the commission. And that is, again, to try to stay ahead of the game. We'll make it, sound more.
Yeah, I want to clarify that
stay ahead of the game.
my position on it, I want to clarify that I see it as an unfunded mandate, that I'm worried about it being something the police department is then required to cut something else to fund. And so my position is that the city council be directed to find the funding outside of the police department, because it's an unfunded mandate. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief. Are you funded for this already, or?
No, we're still in the process. It is frustrating to even talk about this because we get mandates thrust upon us with no funding. So just to set the table, so to speak, January 1st of this year, we have to report data differently to the FBI. We were given no money to do that. So after an assessment, I believe I went before council to get a special appropriation of $160,000 just to facilitate the transfer of data from here to the FBI. And so that's been our priority because that date comes up first. Then our second major program technologically from the CAD RMS system is going to be RIPA. So we had planned on meeting the due date mandated by law. We would like to go up sooner, but I really don't know if it's possible. We have to take one major project at a time. And so we took NIBRS because that was due coming this January 1st. We're working on, and Jennifer Moran, our records manager, and Captain Travis Irving that's here tonight, have been working on this almost full time. It's very complex when you make these types of transfers of data without a system to accommodate it. So we've got to make sure that there's a lot of information that's going to be required in different fields that's going to have to be reported in the proper format, and that just doesn't occur overnight. So the city's going to have to pay for it anyway.
Well, I just hope they don't come make you just take it out of your budget. That's my concern, because when you go to them, I have a feeling that they're going to say, well, we just paid $160,000 for another one. So that's why my position is that we make that as a recommendation for them, so that to give them a heads up to stay ahead of the game. I see Commissioner Cohen and then Commissioner Elman. You're on mute still, Commissioner.
Sorry. It's mandated by law. I think we have to do it. Maybe we should just say that we recommend that they do it as expeditiously as possible. And it's got to be done by the 23, but if they can do it faster, great.
Okay, Commissioner Elman? You're on mute still, too.
Sorry about that. Questions for the chief. Did I hear right that the larger departments are supposed to go online first?
They have already, yes.
Now, since we're a smaller department, I'll put on my IT hat. You never want to buy the first generation of software. And if the larger departments, they're probably debugging the systems right now. So, do we want to be first? Because probably we'll deal with more IT problems if we try to be the first.
Well, it's hard to answer because there is no one CAD or RMS system that exists for law enforcement. You probably got double digits number of systems out there. So our system is used by other departments, and it's just a long, laborious process. A lot of it depends on what iteration or generation was involved. So that's being assessed right now, and nobody has lost step in terms of responding to the Tiburon company in terms of specifying what was needed. So it's just, we're working as fast as we can right now, and I think that Commissioner Cohen described it best, that we do our level best to go online as soon as feasible.
Okay, so Commissioner
I
Chapman?
think that also sends a message to the council that our commission is concerned about the issue and want to make sure that everything happens as quick as possible.
Okay, so then your motion is to recommend to the city council that they fund the whatever necessary money amount to start this program as expeditiously as possible. We're not forcing it, we're just saying that
Yeah, we have no.
if they can, they can.
What I think, we just state that the commission thinks it's a priority.
Okay, I think that would probably be a good idea. Commissioner Chapman, if we stated it's a priority for the commission, would that suffice for you? Because we really don't have control over where the money comes from and things. We can make a recommendation that this is a priority. They've asked us, it's on our list. The city attorney have a comment?
What I heard in your statement, Chair Kobayashi, was also that you don't want the funding to come out of the police department budget. That the commission is recommending the city find funding for the technology outside of the police department budget. Is that correct?
That was my
Okay.
concern, yes.
So there are these various different ideas. I think Commissioner Chapman has slightly different recommendation that he wants. You just need to vote on it, and then so that you have a consensus.
Okay, so are we ready for a vote on Commissioner Chapman's original motion? Do we have?
Well,
I had seconded
Commissioner
it. I had seconded it, so.
You seconded? Okay.
Yeah, so do we, all in favor?
Oh, okay.
All opposed?
So I saw 3 in favor.
And I don't know, Commissioner Elman, were you in the middle or abstaining or? what was it?
No, I'm not abstaining. I would just, could we rehear the motion again?
Okay, so let's rehear the motion and vote. Just to clarify, because apparently there's 2 commissioners who would like to have it restated. To vote on it
Commissioner
correctly,
Chapman,
can't we?
do you want me to read out what I wrote, or would you like to restate it?
No, go right ahead and let's see if that works.
Okay. Recommend City Council expeditiously fund and support the necessary technology to collect data that will be required in 2023 in order to collect the data as soon as possible.
Correct.
Okay, so I'll second that. Now, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, so motion carries, all in favor. All right, any other items? We're looking at item number 5 of today's agenda. Specific recommendations regarding the police department to be presented at our next, at the city council meeting in January 2021. Did you have a comment? No? Okay. So I'm going to go this list. I don't know if you have this Exhibit A here from July 24th. We covered already the SROs, the MET team. There was a animal shelter suggested on there. I don't know if we want to take that up. The implicit bias training we've covered. So I don't know if we want to have a discussion on that. Are there any recommendations on any further implicit bias training? do we make a recommendation to the city council? We did hear the presentations. For the city attorney, there are some things here that we did that kind of answer themselves. We want to let the city council know that we reviewed them. How would you suggest that we put it? They may not need to be discussed here, but we want to let them know that we did review these. Is there a way to do that in that report?
Well, we could just simply state it like that, as you just said. We can list the topic and say the following topics were reviewed, or, were heard at Police Commission, but there are no specific recommendations or something along those lines.
Because I want to give the commission an opportunity to weigh in on them. Were any commissioners not satisfied with these presentations or feel that we were lacking anything that? Other than that, we can just then leave it as is, just like the city attorney is saying, and just pass it on as something that we heard, that we reviewed.
Oh. Chair Kobaisi,
Yes.
if you wouldn't mind, would you read off the list of the topics that were heard, but there are not going to be specific recommendations?
Let's see. I'm gonna let them hear them, and if they have any recommendations, then we'll take those up. So there's implicit bias training. I don't see anybody wanting any recommendations on that. If you do, as I read them, let me know. Sure.
One recommendation, and that is that there's new training being developed and that the department be directed to evaluate new implicit bias training, both presented as a lecture as well as role-playing in scenarios.
Okay, Ms. O, how do you think, is that just a recommendation? Do we need to vote on that, or is that just a side?
Well, the chief has put it out there as a topic. You should, yes, have a discussion and then see.
All right, let's have a discussion on
Make your motion,
it.
second, vote.
Anybody, any comments on that? Go ahead, Commissioner
Real
Chapman.
quick, I'm in favor of it.
Okay. I would be in favor of that too. So you want to, so the motion then would be Commissioner
It's
Cohen.
happening, they're doing it now. So I don't know that the city council needs to vote on this, but we could tell them what we're doing.
Yeah, we're telling them what they're doing, and then the chief makes a good point that type of training is always being updated and changing.
Right.
So we're supporting, if everybody agrees, we're supporting that the department continue to follow up and seek the latest training available to them in that area
Yeah.
on bias training, which I think they're going to be you're kind of mandated to do the training. So,
So moved.
So,
okay.
Mr.
Commissioner,
Chair, what do you think about putting it in the report where it says that based upon the reports given by the police department, the department is continuously evaluating new implicit bias training. Therefore, there's no specific recommendation at this time because as it was stated by Commissioner Cohen, it is something that they continue to do. I'm a little uncertain about how to word the recommendation. So that might be another way to handle that as a subject that you all addressed and discussed and learned about, but that you don't necessarily have a recommendation different from what they're already doing now.
I agree with that. Everybody kind of agree with that. Because since there's no recommendation, we should just leave it at that we received the information, we agree that it's happening. And, okay, so next then, disciplinary process. We had presentations on that as well. I want to remind everybody the disciplinary process is not really something that's in our hands. It's already covered through state law. And California has specific things when it comes to disciplinary process with the Peace Officers Bill of Rights. And then also with union contracts. So we did have a presentation on that, but I don't know if we can really make any recommendations on that. Could we, Ms. O, put that as another one that we reviewed and really don't have, as long as we're meeting the legal standard at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any, okay, Mr. Commissioner Ellman? Your mic?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Gee, I got to learn this. No, I think basically it comes down to there's nothing in the charter that gives the police commission the ability to be involved in discipline. And that's not our role.
Okay. Let's see. Another possible item we could have gone over, we still can't, training program, including internal and external opportunities. I think that was for training program for officers. We didn't get any presentations on that. Community academy, increasing the amount of, I think the content in there and the amount of times we offered it. Chief, do we have a cap on any of that stuff? Community academy, do we have a cap of how many people we can take, or?
Generally, we have 2 academies per year, albeit this year because of COVID, we've been out of business. But that is a program that we really should emphasize to the greatest possible extent because there is no shortage of folks that want to sign up for it. And I'll remind you, in the past, we've done it in Spanish, in Armenian, as well as for the hearing impaired. So I think we should continue to do that, funding being available.
Ms.
Chief LaChas, have people had to be turned away because we didn't have the capacity to take them? I think that's what Chair Kobayashi was asking in terms of their recommendation. Do they need to recommend that, again, that this program be expanded because we haven't been able to fully include people, or has it been sufficient the way it's set up now?
We've had 2 classes per year of approximately 35 people that attend. We could do more, but again, it's a matter of having the personnel available to do all of the training that's required. So that's got a dollar sign attached to it. But I think that we should hold as many as possible.
Okay, so for the benefit of the community, our recommendations, I realize some of them might be tied to some funding issues. I think we're going to leave the funding up to the city council to determine, but specifically in your opinion, do we turn people down? I mean, is there room for another one? Let's say they funded you for it. Can we do more?
We could double easily.
Okay. Okay, so based on that, with the, through consensus, I guess we'll take this because we didn't have it. Would anybody be against recommending that this program be expanded? The Citizens Academy. So we would, support it. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Before everybody jumps in, I would also like to say I don't want anybody to feel pressured because you didn't get a presentation on it to make a decision tonight. If there are certain topics that didn't get a presentation that you feel warrant waiting on making a recommendation, we can note that in the report as well.
Okay. So would this be one of those items you want to put on the side as things we'd look into later? Obviously, when we do this, I mean, the police commission doesn't end after this report.
Right.
The police commission will continue. So some of these items that we don't get to can be moved over into next year's agenda. And so maybe this is one of those things we'll just say we're going to look over in future agendas. Is that I think everyone, do I see everyone agreeing with that? Is there disagreement? Okay, I see a majority, everybody's agreeing that we'll move that over. Next item was community-based organizations and partners with FSA, BHRC, BTAC, Boys and Girls Club. Again, all those were groups we didn't specifically reach out to, but we did say any group, any individual that wants to come address the commission can. And I'll skip over that because none of those groups responded or participated. Pending police reform legislation, we talked about that. I believe we all agreed that it's pending. There's not much we could do about it till it gets here. And so I know we had wanted a presentation on it, but the city attorney's office is going to keep us apprised. I remember when the city attorney was on, she said that any type of police legislation coming through that she was going to send our way. And I think I remember getting a list of what's pending at that time, a couple months ago. So we'll just leave that one alone. We did discuss it, and we don't have anything to do with legislation, so we'll wait. BPOA participation, I think we're going to wait on that until we have the recommendations so they have something to respond to, if that's okay with everybody. I don't see anyone disagreeing. The Racial and Identity Profiling Act, we've covered that. Use of force with racial or mental health components, I believe we covered that with the MET team when it came to use of force, correct? Are there any recommendations on that? We'll just leave it with what the MET team was, with our MET team recommendation. Okay. Review of officer training, the Academy FTO program, roll call, in-service training, and recurrent training. We did get, I believe, a presentation on training. Chief, did we get a presentation on the training? I mean, we got a lot of presentations. I can't remember the
I believe it was
specific
a component in almost each one of the presentations because it's continuous. And as a matter of fact, every session of the legislature, there will be new training that's required.
Yes, and so you get those like post-mandated training. Every year they come out with all the legal updates, all that stuff all happens. I think we discussed that already.
Yes,
so.
and then we subscribe to the Lexipol service for our policies. And generally, when policies change, we get notified by Lexipol to change our policy, and oftentimes that then requires a training element.
Okay. Then we had, so I think we've covered that for the rest of the commissioners. Any comments on that? Okay, next, Police Commission tracking system of OIR recommendations. I don't remember where this came up, but I know that we asked for a follow-up on all the pending OIR recommendations. And I don't know if we're going to wait for that to come back, right?
No, I believe it already did come back. Yes. So we had the OIR recommendations. So the one that I think the last report was in for the period of 2017 or 18. What we did is responded specifically to each one of those. I believe
that's right.
Deputy Chief Albanese made that presentation.
We did.
That will be on a go-forward basis. We will do that with every OIR report, or if there's a successor to OIR, we'll do that.
Okay, so we covered that already. Review of hiring standards, written, oral, physical agility background, psych, and Chief's oral panel. I don't know. I think we did cover a little bit of the hiring process in some of the presentations we had.
Yes.
And I don't know if the commission wants to, maybe these are kind of broad topics. Maybe these are something we move into next year. I don't think it's something we have to report back to the council on. And the last one that we had here on our list of possible discussion items was review of required mental health training for officers and others. And I think we covered that pretty thoroughly. So we did a lot of what's on this list. And basically, I think it boiled down to the MET team, the SRO program were the biggest highlights, and we delved into those pretty deep. I don't see, there's one other one that we had a presentation on was the 8 Can't Wait. And so maybe we should have a discussion on that and make a recommendation as to the 8 Can't Wait issues, because that was another big topic that we were getting calls from the community. So I'll start off. My position on that is, we met, I believe, what was it, Chief, 6 out of the 8?
I believe so, and I know that legislatively, one of them has been removed. That was the carotid.
Yeah, so and that's what I was going to say, is that a lot of that is tied to legislation and really not anything we can do here. So are we 7 out of 8 now?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Any comments from other commissioners? So should we make a recommendation on this or just leave it that we addressed it? We listened, we heard the comments, we addressed it, and the findings are what the chief just said, that we meet 7 out of 8 of them. And, I don't know what the eighth one is, but possibly that might be an issue for legislation. Commissioner Cohen.
Yeah, this is totally a legislative thing. I don't even think the city council has anything to do with this. The legislature passes their rules and we comply.
So for the city attorney's office, could we list this as one of the things? We want to make sure that we let the city council know that we heard from the community about it, and that there's really nothing we can as a body address on it. It's not in our authority, but that we're 7 out of 8 in compliance on that.
There were some other ones. I would recommend that we specifically enumerate each one, because there was another one that was modified this year, and that was escalation, de-escalation.
Okay.
So I think it's important to delineate the 8. And again, we have the recordings of what was said, and we can just state our position on each one of those.
Okay, and then we would review that at the next meeting. City Attorney's Office has a comment, I believe. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I just need some clarification as to how this will be. So one thing that I did hear in a recent legal update is that there is pending legislation that requires police officers to de-escalate in any given situation. Like, they are required by law to engage in de-escalation techniques. My recollection is that it did not pass this go round, but that it's not dead and it may come back. So that particular factor that the chief just mentioned, again, may be addressed legislatively in the next year or oncoming sessions of the state legislature. I'm not exactly sure what the recommendation would be. I think this also could be something that's an ongoing, that you did listen to the presentation. It sounds like you can also make a comment in the report that Burbank was able to meet 7 out of the 8 factors, and that I don't know if you have an opinion as to whether you think that that's good, that's bad, they need to do more. So if you have some sort of collective comment on Burbank's, how Burbank's performed on that, we can put that in the report. But in terms of a recommendation, I'm having a little trouble trying to frame it. So you're going to have to frame it for me if you want to make a recommendation as to this.
Let me ask this, Chief. Do you know what that 8th one is that we don't allegedly follow at this point?
I thought it was, the carotid, but that's already been handled by legislation.
Okay, so then could we be in full?
I believe so. We'll have to review.
We'll have to
them.
double check on that, because I remember we were pretty close before the 8. I mean, it wasn't the 8 I want to also clarify that the 8 can't wait push wasn't what pushed the city into complying or with their request. We had stuff that was already done internally and through the state, and 8 can't wait is obviously a national type of thing that's being pushed around. But California has had a lot of those things already, dealt with from a long time ago. So we'll get back on that one. And then I think the last one I had was curfews and truancies. And I'll just start off by saying, we don't control the curfew law or the truancy laws on the commission. So I don't know how, because that was a big topic that was the public was writing about. Any comments on that? I don't even think it falls into the police commission's authority. So we'll just Commissioner Cohen and then Commissioner Chapman.
Put a line in there that says that many of the things that came before us were not in our purview, and therefore we listened attentively, but there is really little we can do about it.
I would agree with that. Commissioner Chapman?
I don't know if I'm stepping ahead. You had mentioned earlier briefly about animal control. And I don't think that our commission has ever discussed some possibilities as far as perhaps suggesting to the council that a study be done to see if that might be done more efficiently outside of our department, and that the savings of any funds be reinstituted to things they need, like the software for this program we were talking about earlier.
Well, I certainly think
I'd
we
like
can
to
address
hear other
that.
people's feelings
Yeah,
about it.
I agree that that's a topic we could take up. But I would recommend we move that into a, next year's agenda. Okay, so, and then the last one, here's the last one. The city council had asked us to look into the diversity and makeup of the police commission. So that's what's on that's the last one for us. I can start first on it, but I'm willing to listen to anybody else's concerns or comments about it. Commissioner Cohen?
Yeah, I think that again is a city council issue. It's not ours. But maybe they want to recommend that every future commissioner maybe spend a little time in a patrol car before they jump on the commission to see what police work is really like, or even attend the community academy.
Okay, any other commissioners? Okay, well, I'll let Commissioner Chapman.
I think Commissioner Cohen is a good suggestion that, in fact, they might even consider that a requirement to have some of the training that the department provides, as well as doing a ride-along. You do a ride-along as part of that training anyway.
Okay. I'd like to ask a question from the city attorney's office. So we received a lot from the public on this and from the city council to look into this. And I think I may have posed this question to you before. What's the legality of requiring a ethnicity or race for a position on a commission or board?
I don't believe that the commission wants to recommend that there be set numbers, because that's essentially affirmative action, if you will, in a sense. So I just want to have a couple comments. One is Commissioner Cohen and Commissioner Chapman's suggestion is great. It does not, however, go to diversity and makeup of the commission. So while it's a good suggestion, it's somewhat off topic with what we are trying to deal with now. I believe that topic came up because council wanted your opinion as to whether or not the current makeup of the commission sufficiently addresses our community and the different issues raised by, perhaps different ethnicities, different races, different genders. And my recollection is that there was a discussion about this, but no recommendations or no concrete thoughts came out of it. So I don't know if you're not prepared tonight to make a recommendation as a body, rather than trying to force it, I would suggest bringing it back for further discussion. And, prior discussion about this topic, I think some of the commissioners felt that, how is this up to us? You're the council, you appoint us, so you should decide whether or not we sufficiently represent diversity in the community. My recollection is that was a comment. But again, rather than force a recommendation that you don't feel, I would either put it over or put it under the category of we discussed it, but we don't have any specific recommendations. If you recall, I think this was the topic where Commissioner Vest also talked about expanding the number, that the council was the one that cut the number down to 5. So how are we supposed to make a recommendation? The memory is not as good as it used to be, but I believe that was the nature of the discussion when we last talked about this topic.
Yes, Commissioner Vest?
They had cut us down, not too many months before. I do believe at the beginning of the year, or if not, it was the end of last year, from 7 to 5, and nobody asked us our opinion about that. So I don't know why it is we need to weigh in on what they're going to do with the commission here out, because they saw fit to make that decision without our opinion. I think they're fit to make the decision again without our opinion.
So one thing that you might want to, you could recommend if you feel it, is to, again, raise the number back up to 7 so that perhaps you can attract, again, more diverse people. The bigger you are, perhaps the more diverse you might become in terms of the makeup of the commission. So as long you can relate it back to diversity and makeup of the commission in that sense. So that could be a recommendation if all of you concur that the number is too small now at 5. But again, don't force it if it's not there. We can categorize it in a different way in the report.
I think we can still have a discussion on it, I think. And Commissioner Cohen, do you have a comment on it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think we ought to stay out of it. We have nothing to do with how often we meet. We have nothing, the council does that. They change the number of meetings, they change the number of us, then they change it back. That's in their bailiwick. Okay. We serve at their pleasure.
Okay, Commissioner Elman and then Commissioner Chapman.
I have a question for the city attorney. How can you have a situation in the city where one commission has a different diversity goal than other commissions?
So that could be something that you put. We don't have a recommendation because we don't, we feel that is a goal only related to our commission, and we don't think that's right. Legally, if you're asking me legally, can they do that? Sure. There's nothing illegal about the city council wanting the group that represents the community and police affairs to be more diverse, whereas they may not feel it as necessary for some other board or commission, civil service board, for example. I don't know. There's nothing illegal about what they are asking. And frankly, if you don't have a recommendation, you don't have to make one. But for example, if you have recommendation on how the city council might do better outreach to try to elicit volunteers for the commission, that could be a recommendation if you have thoughts on that or not. But the topic is diversity, right? Diversity in race, gender, all of those things. Do you have any recommendations that you want to make to council about that?
Okay, Commissioner Chapman.
I don't know if I'm going against the crowd here, but I certainly think that we should suggest to the council that we be expanded at least back to 7 members. And I think that would be consistent with the recent resolution that council passed, trying to make our city as diverse as possible in relationship to the diversity in the community, so that the government reflects that.
Okay. So since we're discussing it, I'll I have a concern about the diversity issue. Many people aren't going to like it, but here goes. In all this time that we've been here, and since all this, the city council decided to ask us to do this and put us back to monthly meetings, I've been getting a lot of communication from the citizens and things like that, and we've all heard it on the phone about diversity and gender, and I just got to tell you that the minute we start identifying certain people that shouldn't be on and certain people that should be on, whatever race or ethnicity they are, it becomes a problem. And it becomes a problem whether you're white or non-white or black. I had somebody tell me when I was talking to them about this, I said, I may not stay on this commission again. I may not, apply again. They were innocent in it, but they said, oh no, you should stay. You're the only person of color. I didn't have any comment at the time, and because I just didn't have any. But how insulting is it to tell someone that their only value is that they're a person of color? And that works two ways. You can devalue someone because of their color, or because of they're not the same color, or because of their gender. So when we start, to answer the city council's question, diversity is based on the diverse pool of people that apply, and you pick the best people for that job, regardless of what they look like, or what their gender is, or what their job is, because I've had people tell me things like, oh, you shouldn't have any police officers, or you shouldn't have any of the, when we start doing that, that a police officer being on our committee who lives in our city is a member of our community. When we start telling them they can't be part of our community, we're doing exactly what these people are asking us not to do. We're shelving and segregating someone aside. So, I like that they asked us to talk about diversity, because that's my position, is that you find the best person to do the job no matter what their background is, what they do. They're a member of our community, and we accept everybody that lives in the city of Burbank, regardless of where they come from, what they look like, what language they speak, or what their color is. So I think we should take it up and put it a recommendation. That's mine. Commissioner Cohen.
I agree with you 100%. But if you look at our commission, we are a pretty diverse group.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. When you start to look at, we're diverse, but not to some other group. When you start to handpick things and say you can only be a certain race to be in this, well, you're going to leave somebody out. And so that's why I think our recommendation should be that we continue to look. And, it's not our job. It's the city council's job to appoint us. We didn't appoint ourselves. And it's their job. They're elected. They should fill the seats with whoever they feel can do the best job. And if diversity plays into that, that's their job to pick it. So I think my recommendation would be that, to do your job as a city council, and I would expand the to 7 to have more opportunity for other people, if that's what gives more opportunity. But then, if you're a member of the public, apply. If you're a person of color or gender that you seem to think that there's missing here, apply. Commissioner Elman.
I have a question. Since I'm the new kid on this commission, I've only served on this commission as a 5-member group. My question is, all of you have served longer than me and had been in a 7-member group. Can you discuss what were the benefits of being a 7-member group over a 5-member group, if anything has been lost?
Commissioner Cohen.
My opinion is we're doing exactly as well as we did with 7, only you had room to breathe on the dais. It was pretty crowded with 7 of those chairs up there.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Chapman.
Yeah, I was on when there were 7 as well. And it's very similar. However, having 7 gives the council an opportunity to make some other choices to make the commission match more what the community is like.
And so that was my only suggestion, is the only way I feel comfortable in supporting diversity would be by increasing the amount of people, not by segregating or saying who can and who cannot be on the commission, giving them more of an opportunity. That's my only that's my 2 cents on it. It may not even be necessary. Next time around, when they can appoint the new 5 people, the new 3 or whatever, they can pick as diverse as they want.
Okay.
City Attorney's Office, and then Commissioner Chapman.
So what I'm hearing from you, Mr. Chair, is the a possible motion to recommend that City Council appoint the best qualified person regardless of any consideration of their ethnicity, color, gender, etc. And also a recommendation to expand to 7 members to get a diversity of opinion, again, as opposed to any particular ethnicity, color, gender.
Yes, and I would support that with the addition of not to prevent anybody from being appointed to the commission. Because that's a lot where the public were telling us, we only want a certain group, or we want to have one African American at least, or one. I want to make sure that if we are making a recommendation, that we are making a point to say, regardless of race, regardless of what the person's profession is, I don't want us to be excluding any citizen of Burbank.
So regardless of any consideration, of any factor that would prevent them being on, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out exactly how to word it, but I think I understand what you're trying to say.
No exclusions. I had Commissioner Chapman and then Commissioner Ellman.
Yeah, I think we could make that very simple and just say that we would propose that they consider having 7 members on the commission, and that would give them opportunities, additional opportunities to address diversity in our commission. And just leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't know, but that doesn't address, well, at least my concerns. I want to include people. I'm trying to make a point that we don't want to exclude anybody. Commissioner Ellman, I think, and then Commissioner Cohen.
Well, the only thing I want to bring up, and it's just maybe it's apples and oranges, but the Los Angeles Police Commission is 5 members, and they're with a 10,000 officer force. We have 160 officers, and we need 7 commissioners more than LA.
I get it. Commissioner Cohen.
Yeah, I agree with your position, Mr. Chairman. But I would not make a recommendation on the part of expanding, but I agree with all your wording regarding the diversity part. Yeah, I think expanding is none of our business.
Yeah, I'm willing to leave that up to them. They asked us, but I just want to make sure that nobody's excluded.
They're
so can I rephrase that?
Ends, by us.
For the city attorney's office, so can I just then say, if the rest agree, Commissioner Chapman, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm still having a little bit of concern here. We have no part in the decision who the council selects. But we can make a suggestion as to the size of our commission. Only a suggestion, but they have to agree to it. And I'm strongly in favor of suggesting that we added 2 more people, make it 7 again.
Okay, so
and with no instructions on they're going to have to adjust to their own thinking as far as race or compatibility or the quality of the person that's being added to the commission. So I don't want to get into that part of it. I just want to say, let's give them the option by suggesting to them that they expand it to 7 people and leave it at that.
Okay, before I go to Commissioner Vest, I just want to review. They asked us to do diversity and number of members. So, Commissioner Vest, go ahead.
Well, how about we just pose both motions and see where it goes?
Okay, so let's do the first motion to expand the police commission to return it back to 7 members with no other further. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that doesn't pass, but again, they're the ones who decided to do that, and they can certainly do that again. And with the issue for diversity on the commission, I'm not sure how to word it besides saying to be open and inclusive of any member of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, and anything you want to add on there.
So what I have so far is recommend that City Council appoint the best qualified person regardless of any consideration of their ethnicity, color, gender, profession, or any other factor that might exclude people from serving.
Perfectly said.
Does that work? Okay.
Can we have a vote on that? All in favor? Oh, any opposed? Commissioner Chapman, for some reason, your screen froze. And so I didn't know, are you approving or not? And I can't hear you. Sorry.
Actually, I'd like to abstain on that one.
Okay, so then we have 4 for it and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Okay, I think that was it. Are there any other topics? Commissioner Chapman?
No, I do have a question. We are not sending any recommendation on size to the council, whether it be 5 or 7. It's just out of the document completely.
Right now it is. I mean, we can certainly
okay.
say just it's up to you. We can make a recommendation that that's their job if that's what you want to.
No,
Okay.
If we
All right.
did not recommend it, it's not there.
Okay, got it. All right, I think that's it. Are there any other items that the commission wants to add for discussion so that we forward in January? Anything else? I don't see any. Okay. Let's go to item number 6, G6, general announcements by the police chief, brief announcements. Police chief, your announcements, please.
Okay, thank you. Briefly, we're going to have a graduation on Friday from the LA County Sheriff's Academy of 2 additional recruits. And I am happy to say that
they're still going out to pee. For the last 40 minutes.
that so far this year we have hired 21 individuals. So we've done exceedingly well. Our objective for the entire calendar year was get 20 in 2020. So we've arrived and exceeded that. So that being said, next item I'd like to do is give credit to Sergeant Derek Green for the Halloween celebration that we had, the kind of the reverse trick or treat, but that worked out exceedingly well. That was his idea, and it's my information that was replicated by other police departments, so that's a great thing. And then in addition, he's been working at a great pitch to make sure we could have Shop with a Cop this year. So we were able to contact Target. They're our benefactor. They're providing $5,000, so we'll be able to issue the cards in different amounts for shopping at Target, which is a great thing. We're not going to be able to have the big celebration that we normally did by going to dinner, but it is really a good thing. The other item was I got to give credit to Lieutenant Pugliese because he's really overseen the stellar increase in recruitment of qualified folks this year. And as you know, it is very difficult to recruit qualified folks with the national narrative the way it is. A couple of other items real quickly. We've had a lot of concern recently voiced about coyotes in the city, and we're going to do a virtual presentation on this coming Tuesday night where we're going to talk about how to deal with coyotes. There's a lot of information out there that coyotes are taking cats and dogs and presenting a nuisance. There are state regulations relative to what we can and can't do. So we'll go into detail on that. The objective is to control the situation. So this is going to be the first presentation made, and I think that we've made some progress by looking at the law and what actually we can and cannot do. So that will be discussed. And then I would like to say that the mask situation enforced by Wildan in some of the parks on the Chandler Bikeway and downtown has worked well. We've got a great deal of cooperation. We've issued 56 citations to date. But again, the issuance of citations is not the objective. The objective is to obtain voluntary compliance. And my observations, as well as the rest of the staff, has been that that is occurring. And the observation of those Wildan employees mirrors our observations. So that's a great thing. And then the last thing is we had the election. We were geared up for the election, and we were able to gear down quickly. But that was a good opportunity to test our preparedness, and things worked out well in terms of a training exercise, if you will. So with that, looking forward to seeing you in December.
I have one question for the chief.
We'll take a vote on that. There's a question from Commissioner Elman. Your mic.
Right now, what is the head count of the department?
We're at about 150.
So I guess we're still 10 down?
Well, we've got a lot in the pipeline, but
Okay.
let me say this. We are a young department. We are an old department. So there are a lot of people that are eligible to retire, and that has been an issue for us, but we've been able to make up for the losses in the past, as well as compensate for the retirements of people currently. I will say that it is a very difficult environment to recruit. Even our fire department is having problems right now, and they could be more severe than ours. But we're happy with the people we've hired, and I think the community is going to be pleased.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next item here is introduction of, Sherry, should we poll for the December meeting? Okay, before we go there, does anybody feel that we need to have a December meeting, or that we've captured everything here and that we can wait, because we want to present in February. We still have January to review. That gives staff an opportunity to come up with our recommendations. So if anybody feels we should meet in December, can you let us know right now? Because we only have one person who feels we need to meet in December. Based on that, I think we'll be seeing everybody in January. Ms. O, do we need to vote on that? Your mic is off. Oh, I think she's.
I don't think it's necessary to vote. Sherry, do we have the actual January date so that Chair Kobaisi can announce it tonight?
We'll just go ahead and meet at our normal third Wednesday of the month.
I believe that's, let's see what that is.
Let's see.
Which will be
Because our agenda has the December date, I want to make sure that Chair Kobaisi is able to announce it. So for people who
20th?
might be
Okay.
listening in, would that be the 20th?
yes.
Be the 20th of 2021. Okay, so let's then go to the introduction of agenda items. for
Let me
future-
ask one question. I'll defer to Sherry on this. That we have to have a staff report to the city manager's office by what date? Ahead of the date of the commission meeting? Because what we'll need to do, there is a lead time in order for us to get a staff report to the city manager's office to give to the council. They get it as well. So there is some lead time involved.
Is February 9th the date that we were talking? Okay, so February 9th would be the date of the joint. Would
Well,
From
I
the
think
20th
what
be
we'll
enough?
have to do is take a look at that, because they have some presentations scheduled, and what they don't want to do is have one council meeting be too lengthy as opposed to the others. So they're very strategic in laying those out. So I think what we'll need to do is check with the city manager's office and make a determination.
I think they've got some info here.
So I'm being told by Courtney Paget, our acting police administrator, that the report is due to staff, to the city council by January 28th. So
Okay, so
if you're going to go on the 9th. So if you meet on the 20th, that would give us a week to finalize the reports. We have the initial ones you can discuss at your next meeting in January, and then in February, then you would be able to present, and we would have it ready for.
Do we know if they're having a meeting on that date?
They've got 2 dates on hold for us.
Okay.
The 26th and the 9th. They gave me both those dates.
Okay, so we're shooting for the 9th, so we should be okay with the 20th.
Yes.
Okay, so that's okay then. Okay, so introduction of agenda items for future meetings. I would suggest that we put on the animal control one for future meeting, not for the next meeting. For the next meeting, we're going to put this document as I think the main thing, because we're going to need time to, do you think we'll have any other items on there? Are there presentations? Yeah, I think we're going to offer BPOE the opportunity. We're going to offer them the opportunity if they want to come. That's what I told them, that everybody be have an opportunity. They'd probably want to see their recommendations before. So, we can put them in on the agenda, and if they decide they don't want to, we can cancel it. Is that okay with the rest of the commission? Okay, I see consensus is yes. All right, and then we'll just keep that meeting open to finalize the recommendations for the joint meeting with the city council. Okay. With that said, then, I want to adjourn the meeting and on, what?
I just want to confirm, so the ACO is not going to be part of that January meeting. That'll be agendized at the January meeting for some future meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So let's close the meeting in honor of fallen officers, and specifically this month, the memory of Officer Matthew Pavelka. Meeting adjourned.